Have you ever asked yourself, why don't they like me? You're kind, respectful. You've lived long enough to know how to treat others. Yet someone out there just seems to have a problem with you. No explanation, no reason, just indifference or even disdain. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. But here's a question no one tells you to ask. What if it's not about them liking you? What if it's about you liking yourself? Today, I want to walk you through a truth that's hard to swallow, but absolutely liberating, especially in retirement. Not everyone will like you, and that's okay. In fact, it might be the best thing that ever happened to you. In your 20s, you want to fit in. In your 40s, you want to be respected. But in your 60s, you realize that the freedom you've been searching for was never about being accepted. It was about letting go of the need to be. Cicero, one of the great Roman philosophers, once said, "As I grow older, I pay less attention to what men say. I just watch what they do." There's wisdom in that, because with age comes the power to see beyond masks, beyond games, and beyond social expectations. But here's the irony. As you age, people expect you to become invisible, polite, quiet, agreeable. And when you don't play along, when you finally live on your own terms, that's when the criticism starts. Let me tell you a quick story about when I decided to retire early, at 60. I expected peace, some time to reflect, maybe travel a bit. What I got? Passive-aggressive comments, strange looks, people asking if I was bored yet. Even my closest friends were confused. One even asked, "Don't you feel useless now?" Ouch. At first it stung, but over time I realized something. They weren't reacting to me. They were reacting to their own fears. Just like Cicero wrote in his reflections on old age, each age has its own pleasures, its own limit. And I was finally learning mine. Think about this. Even the most beloved people on earth have critics. Mother Teresa had haters. Mr. Rogers was criticized. Gandhi was jailed. So if they weren't universally liked, what makes us think we should be? Some people won't like your quiet confidence. Others won't like your laughter. Some will dislike your boundaries. Others, they'll resent your peace. And that has nothing to do with you. Because, like Cicero said, no man is so old that he does not think he can live another year. Meaning, everyone's too caught up in their own drama to truly see yours. Let's say you bake a cake. It's moist, perfectly sweet, made with love. But then someone shows up and says, "I don't like chocolate." Do you change the cake? No. You just serve it to someone who does like chocolate. Stop baking your life for people who never liked chocolate in the first place. In psychological terms, that's called misaligned projection. You're pouring your energy into people who don't even have the capacity or desire to appreciate it. Retirement isn't about convincing people. It's about becoming someone you can finally enjoy being. In his work, De Senectute, on old age, Cicero spoke about how the soul matures when it's freed from bodily ambitions. He compared old age not to decay, but to harvest, a time when all the seeds of life finally bloom. So why waste harvest time trying to impress weeds? Think about this. What one person calls bold, another calls rude. What one calls generous, another calls naive. What one calls authentic, another calls too much. Most people's opinions aren't facts. They're reflections of their own worldview, pain, and limitations. You are a mirror, and sometimes people don't like what they see in it, but that's their battle, not yours. As we grow older, the greatest gift we can give ourselves is not a pension or a cruise or a new hobby. It's permission. Permission to say, "I'm done explaining myself." Permission to live with intention, not approval. Permission to choose peace over performance. In part 2 of this video, we'll dive deeper into this idea of authentic living, even when it ruffles feathers. Because setting boundaries doesn't make you difficult, it makes you free. So, you've finally accepted that not everyone will like you. That's a powerful first step. But what happens next? What do you do with all that emotional space you just cleared out? You fill it with something even more powerful: truth. Not the version of truth you rehearsed for years to be more likable. Not the watered-down truth that keeps everyone comfortable. I'm talking about your truth, raw, real, and unapologetic. Because once you stop performing for the world, you start living for yourself. But here's the twist. Living with authenticity will upset people. And that's exactly how you know you're doing it right. In today's part, I want to show you how to embrace authenticity in a world that punishes it, and why doing so is your secret weapon for a fulfilling retirement. Let's start with something simple, but often misunderstood. Being liked isn't the same as being true. It's easy to fall into the trap of approval addiction. You say yes when you want to say no. You laugh when something offends you. You bite your tongue to keep the peace. And every time you do that, you chip away a tiny piece of your soul. The worst part? Most people won't even notice. Or worse, they'll get used to the version of you that isn't really you. Cicero once wrote, "To be ignorant of what occurred before you were born is to remain always a child." That applies to your personal story too. If you keep ignoring who you were meant to be, and only live by how others want you to act, you remain stuck in emotional adolescence, even at 70. Retirement is not the time to regress, it's the time to evolve. Let's talk about boundaries. Saying no doesn't make you selfish. Choosing rest over obligation doesn't make you lazy. Prioritizing peace doesn't make you cold, but it will upset some people, especially the ones who benefited from your lack of boundaries. You see, for decades, you may have been the yes person, the dependable one, the peacemaker. And now, the very people who leaned on you may call you difficult, distant, or even rude. Why? Because you stopped being what they needed and started being what you needed. But don't worry. That discomfort you feel? That's just growth knocking on the door. Cicero described the end of life not as a descent into irrelevance, but as a movement into wisdom. And wisdom means knowing which voices deserve your attention and which deserve your silence. Here's a truth bomb. You are a mirror. And sometimes, when people look at you, living freely, speaking honestly, resting without guilt, they see what they wish they had the courage to do. But instead of cheering you on, they project their insecurities onto you. Their jealousy becomes judgment. Their regret becomes criticism. And you become their scapegoat. But listen carefully, you are not their therapist. You don't need to fix their reflections. You just need to keep shining. Because your authenticity isn't arrogance, it's light. And if they can't handle it, they're free to look away. Let's shift gears now, because how you respond matters more than what they say. When someone dislikes you, what do? Do you shrink? Apologize for things that aren't wrong? Change your behavior to win them back? That's what I used to do. I'd walk on eggshells, second-guess my tone, rewrite texts 5 times just to avoid conflict, until I realized that all I was doing was outsourcing my peace to people who didn't even value it. So I made a decision, a simple one. I'd no longer negotiate my self-respect just to make someone else more comfortable. And let me tell you, the moment I made that shift, everything changed. I slept better, breathed deeper, laughed louder. I became someone I actually enjoyed spending time with. And you can too. Cicero teaches us that true liberation is internal. You can't control how others see you, but you can control how you see you. That's the real win. Not approval, not applause, inner peace. That quiet knowing that you are exactly where you're supposed to be, doing exactly what you were meant to do. And guess what? That kind of peace is magnetic. It attracts the right people and repels the wrong ones. And that's not a loss. That's alignment. Let me leave you with this. Contrast gives life meaning. Without night, we don't appreciate day. Without rain, We don't cherish sunshine. And without rejection, we don't recognize genuine connection. So yes, some people won't like you. Some will misunderstand you. Some may even walk away. But that's not the end of your story. That's just life pruning the branches so new growth can happen. Cicero said, "The harvest of old age is the recollection and abundance of blessing previously secured." And I believe that. But you don't harvest blessings by staying small. You harvest them by standing tall, even if it makes others uncomfortable. So let's recap. You've stopped chasing approval. You've started embracing truth. You've realized that not everyone's going to get you, and that's okay. But now the real question is, what will you build with this freedom? In Part 3, we'll explore the art of rediscovering joy after 60. Real joy. The kind that doesn't come from pleasing others, but from pleasing your soul. Because this life, it's not a rehearsal. It's your final act. And it deserves to be unforgettable. You've made peace with not being liked by everyone. You've learned to live with honesty, even when it stirs discomfort in others. So what's next? Now, we rediscover joy. Not the kind of joy that's loud and fleeting. Not the one found in someone else's approval, or in the latest gadget, or in pretending to feel young again. I'm talking about something deeper, something steadier. A joy that doesn't ask for permission. A joy that belongs to you. After all, what good is retirement if you can't enjoy it? Too many people think of retirement as a full stop, a long pause. But Cicero didn't see it that way. In De Senectute, he described old age as the season of harvest, not rest as in stagnation, but rest as in satisfaction. He believed that after a lifetime of work, your spirit deserved a chance to bloom. But here's what I've seen. Many people reach this stage and feel lost. They no longer know what brings them joy. For decades, their happiness was tied to productivity, raising a family, building a career, chasing goals. And now that the goals are gone, the calendar is clear, and the house is quiet. They feel empty. Not because life is over, but because they forgot how to live outside of duty. So, let me help you remember. Joy begins with curiosity. One of the biggest myths about aging is that we're supposed to settle down, stop exploring, stop trying new things, stay in our lane. But that's the quickest way to boredom, stagnation, and yes, depression. Your brain needs novelty. Your heart craves wonder. And retirement is the perfect time to honor that curiosity. When was the last time you did something for the first time? When was the last time you tried a new recipe, read a different genre, planted a strange flower in your garden, or walked down a street just because you'd never been there before? These small acts of curiosity reignite your spirit. They remind you that life didn't end. It just changed shape. Cicero believed that the best kind of old age is one filled with learning. He wrote, "Old age, especially honorable old age, has so great authority that this more than counterbalances all the disadvantages of declining years." In other words, age gives you access to deeper wisdom, but only if you keep asking questions. Joy requires space, but also structure. One of the most surprising things I've seen among new retirees is that many of them miss the structure of their old routines. They long for Mondays. Not because they loved their job, but because it gave them rhythm. Now, every day feels the same, and that sameness robs them of momentum. The solution isn't going back to work. It's creating a new rhythm that fits your soul. Try building a weekly joy ritual. Maybe Tuesdays are for nature walks. Fridays are for phone calls with old friends. Sundays are for writing down one story from your past. It doesn't have to be complicated. It just has to be intentional. Because unstructured time, while luxurious, can easily become a trap. It lulls you into stillness, not the peaceful kind, but the numbing kind. Structure gives your curiosity a home. It makes joy a priority instead of an accident. Joy is also found in contribution. Now, this might sound contradictory. Didn't we just say retirement is about you? Yes, but hear me out. Contribution isn't about obligation, it's about legacy. And legacy isn't built by doing what you have to, it's built by doing what feels right. There's a kind of joy that only comes from being useful, not because society demands it, but because your soul desires it. That could mean mentoring someone younger, volunteering at a local school, teaching a neighbor how to cook, or simply writing down your life lessons and mailing them to your grandchildren. The point is, your life experience is currency, and the act of sharing it, not for applause but for meaning, is incredibly fulfilling. Cicero put it this way: "What youth longs for in hope, the old man achieves in memory." When you contribute from a place of wisdom, your memories become a gift to others. And your heart? It grows lighter every time you give. But perhaps most importantly, joy is internal. You won't find it in the past. You won't find it scrolling on a screen. And you certainly won't find it by comparing your retirement to someone else's highlight reel. Joy doesn't shout. It whispers. It's in the warm sun on your face while sipping tea on the porch. It's in the sound of your favorite song, the one that takes you back to your first love. It's in the smell of a book you've read 10 times and still love. It's in the laugh you let out when no one's watching. You don't need to earn that kind of joy. You just need to slow down long enough to notice it. Cicero said, "If you have a garden and a library, you have everything you need." In modern terms, if you have peace and something that sparks your mind, you are already rich. Here's what I believe. We don't chase joy for the feeling itself. We chase it because joy tells us we're alive. It reminds us that even at 60, 70, 80, or beyond, our hearts still beat with purpose. Our minds still wander with wonder. Our spirits still rise when we do what we love. In Part 4, we're going to dive into one of the greatest blockages to joy, the fear of irrelevance. Because it doesn't matter how wise or kind or successful you are, if you don't feel seen, joy becomes distant. So next time, we'll explore how to reclaim your voice, your presence, and your power, even in a world that often overlooks you. But for now, go do something small that makes your soul smile. Because you've earned it. You've embraced peace. You've reclaimed your truth. You've started to rediscover joy. But now comes one of the deepest, most quiet struggles of later life. A fear that doesn't get talked about nearly enough. The fear of becoming irrelevant. It creeps in slowly. At first, it's the sense that no one really asks for your opinion anymore. Then, fewer calls, fewer invitations. People start speaking about you in the past tense, what you did, not what you do. And before you know it, you feel like you're standing in a room, waving, but no one's looking your way. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. But here's the truth no one tells you. You are not irrelevant. You are simply being ignored by a culture obsessed with speed and youth. And that's not your failure. That's theirs. In this part of the journey, I want to help you reclaim your voice, your presence, and your impact. Not by shouting louder, but by standing taller. Because the world doesn't need more noise. It needs depth. And you, my friend, are full of it. Let's start with the myth. Modern society has sold us the idea that relevance belongs to the young. That to matter, you have to trend. That if you're not on the latest platform, saying the latest buzzwords and chasing the next big thing, you don't count. But Cicero would call that nonsense. He wrote, "The best armor of old age is a well-spent life preceding it," meaning your relevance doesn't come from being current. It comes from being wise, from living deeply, learning constantly, and choosing to share that knowledge generously. So the problem isn't that you've become irrelevant. The problem is that most people forgot how to listen to wisdom when it walks into the room. The antidote to irrelevance is contribution with visibility. Let's break that down. Contribution alone, volunteering, helping, advising, is noble. But if no one knows you're doing it, or if you're doing it silently out of fear of seeming self-important, you're missing an opportunity. Visibility isn't vanity. It's how you stay seen. And when people see you, they remember you still have something to offer. So don't be afraid to speak up in that meeting. Share that idea in the community group. Write that opinion piece. Start that YouTube channel. Tell your story, because relevance is not reserved for the loudest. It's reclaimed by the bravest. Now let's talk about one of the biggest barriers to visibility: silence caused by shame. Many older adults hesitate to raise their voice because somewhere along the way, they absorbed the belief that their time to matter has passed, that it's the younger generation's turn, that they should step aside and let others lead. And while mentorship and space sharing are beautiful, there's a difference between being gracious and becoming invisible. You don't have to apologize for still having dreams, still having opinions, still wanting to make things better. Your experience is not a weight, it's a resource. As Cicero said, the authority of those who teach is often an obstacle to those who want to learn. But that doesn't mean you stay silent. It means you lead with humility, but you still lead. Let's get practical. How do you become visible again in a meaningful way? Start where you are. Use what you know. Share what you've lived. Write letters to your family filled with life lessons. Start a blog or podcast, even if just 10 people listen. Join a local committee. Mentor someone who's just entering a chapter you've already lived through. Comment meaningfully online, not to argue, but to guide. Visibility isn't about numbers. It's about impact. And you'd be surprised how one comment, one conversation, one moment of shared wisdom can ripple further than any viral video. The key is this: don't wait to be invited back into relevance. Walk through the door yourself. And let's not ignore the emotional side. Feeling invisible hurts. It's painful when your grandchildren are more interested in their phones than your stories, when people talk over you in conversations, when society treats you as a burden rather than a beacon. But pain, when named, loses power. So let's name it. Let's say, yes, I sometimes feel forgotten. And then let's ask, what can I do about it? Because you are not done. You are ripe. You are seasoned, tested, sharpened by time. And no algorithm, trend, or ageist system can take that away from you. Let's be clear. Relevance is not a number on a screen. It's not your title or your paycheck or how many followers you have. Relevance is being needed, and you are more than ever. Your wisdom brings stability. Your patience calms chaos. Your stories bring context. Your presence grounds the room. In Part 5, we'll explore how to turn that relevance into a legacy. Not one carved in stone, but one lived through others. Because being seen is powerful, but being remembered for the right reasons, that's eternal. So don't shrink. Don't silence yourself. Don't wait for permission. You're still here, and that means you still matter. So now you've reclaimed your relevance. You've stepped out of the shadows, refused to be invisible, and started living with presence again. That in itself is powerful. But now comes the question that echoes loudest for many in this stage of life. What will I leave behind? Not in money, not in trophies, but in meaning. Legacy. A word often misunderstood. We're taught that legacy means building something big, something visible. A building named after you, a book published, a donation that makes headlines. But true legacy isn't about fame. It's about impact. It's the way someone says your name years after you're gone and smiles. It's the wisdom that lives in your children's choices, the kindness that ripples through a stranger's life because of something you once said. Cicero once said, "The life of the dead is placed in the memory of the living." That's legacy. Not a monument, but a memory that breathes. Most people never stop to define the kind of legacy they actually want to leave. They assume it'll just happen. But here's the truth. Legacy is not accidental. It's intentional. It's built day by day, word by word, habit by habit. And the good news is, You don't need to be famous, rich, or extraordinary to leave a mark. You just need to live on purpose. So let's explore what that really means. Legacy starts with clarity. Ask yourself, what do I want people to say about me when I'm no longer here? Not the rehearsed eulogies, but the real words, the ones whispered between friends, the ones told over coffee. What lessons do I want to echo? What values do I hope survive me? What love do I want to be remembered for? When you get clear on that, every day becomes an opportunity to live in alignment with it. You want to be remembered for kindness? Then today, be kind even when it's inconvenient. You want to be remembered for resilience? Then today, show courage even when it's uncomfortable. Legacy isn't about perfection. It's about consistency. It's not what you did once, it's what you did again and again. And second, legacy lives in people, not things. You may not build an empire, but you've already built something better. Relationships. Think about the lives you've touched. Family, friends, neighbors, even strangers. Your legacy flows through them. It's in the story your granddaughter tells about how you always encouraged her to speak her mind. It's in the recipe your nephew still makes because it reminds him of holidays with you. It's in the way your partner remembers how you made them feel safe every single day. These are the moments that last. And the best part? You still have time to create more of them. If you're wondering whether it's too late to leave a legacy, let me tell you something. The most powerful moments are often the simplest ones. A conversation when someone needed it. A note left behind. A story shared that unlocks healing in someone else. None of that takes money. All of it takes heart. Third, legacy requires documentation. Memories fade. Stories disappear if they're never written down. So if you want your life to echo, record it. Not for the world, but for the people you love. Write a letter to your future great-grandchildren. Record yourself sharing a story that shaped who you are. Create a memory box with photos and short notes. You don't have to be a writer. Just be real. One of the greatest gifts you can leave is the sound of your voice, the shape of your thoughts, the texture of your experiences. Imagine how meaningful it would be for someone decades from now to hear your voice saying, "This is who I was, and this is what I learned." That's legacy. Finally, legacy is less about being remembered and more about living remembered. This is subtle but important. We often chase immortality through memory, but Cicero taught something deeper, that the way we live now is the legacy we leave. It's not about how long your name is remembered. It's about how many lives are changed while you're still here. So don't wait for your obituary to be written. Write your legacy in real time. Be the mentor you wish you had. Say the words you've been holding in. Apologize, forgive, create, laugh more. Tell the story again, even if they've already heard it. Because one day, someone will repeat it to someone else. And in that moment, you'll live again. Here's the truth. Legacy isn't a future project. It's a present mindset. It's not something you leave behind. It's something you build as you go. And every single day you're alive is another page in that story. In Part 6, we'll talk about the last piece of this journey. How to face the unknown, the unavoidable, and the often feared reality of mortality. Not with dread, but with dignity, wisdom, and the confidence that you've lived well. Because the end, when met with peace, becomes a completion, not a tragedy. And until that day comes, keep building your legacy, one choice at a time. We've come a long way. You've let go of the need to be liked. You've started living with honesty, rediscovered joy, reclaimed your presence, and begun building a meaningful legacy. And now, it's time to talk about the part we often avoid. The final chapter. Death, the end, the unknown. But what if I told you it's not the enemy? Cicero believed that old age was not a curse, but a privilege, a time to prepare for the most natural conclusion of life with grace. He wrote, "No one is so old that he does not expect to live a day longer. But when death comes, It should not be feared. It should be understood. So, in this final part, let's not talk about dying with fear. Let's talk about living in a way that gives the end meaning. The truth is, most people don't fear death itself. They fear regret, the missed opportunities, the things unsaid, the forgiveness withheld, the dreams delayed until later, only to discover that later never came. But here's the gift that aging gives us: clarity. You don't have to guess anymore about what matters. You know. You've lived enough to see that most worries fade. Most possessions lose meaning. But connection, love, honesty, and legacy, those stay. So the path to a peaceful end is actually simple. Live today with nothing left unsaid. Say what you need to say. Give the hug. Tell the story. Speak the truth. Kindly, but clearly. Forgive them. Forgive yourself. When you do that, you begin to experience something rare. Emotional closure before physical closure. And that, my friend, is powerful. Now let's talk about preparation. Not in fear, but in confidence. Many people avoid conversations about death because they think it's morbid. But what's truly morbid is leaving chaos behind, avoiding wills, dodging difficult talks, leaving loved ones unsure of your wishes. That's not love. That's avoidance. So do the brave thing. Write your will. Talk openly with your family about what you want. Not just the legal stuff, the emotional stuff too. How you want to be remembered. What stories you hope they carry forward. What you want your legacy to look like. These are not sad conversations. They are gifts. Because you're not just giving people closure, you're giving them peace. And now, let's go even deeper. The fear of death often hides a deeper fear, that our life didn't matter, that we'll disappear without making a dent in the world. But let me tell you something I've learned from listening to hundreds of elders and their families. It's not the big moments that echo, it's the small ones, the bedtime stories, the sound of your laughter, the smell of your cooking, the way you made people feel seen when no one else noticed them. These are the things people remember. These are the things people miss. And guess what? You're still creating those moments. So don't wait for the eulogy to start shaping your story. Do it now. Because the end of the story isn't the moment the book closes. It's every sentence that came before, and how it made someone feel. Cicero said, "To live long is to outlive many griefs, but to die well is to leave behind more hope than sorrow." That's what I wish for you. Not just a long life, but a complete one. A life where you chose peace over perfection, connection over comparison, purpose over pressure, and at the end, you didn't just fade, you finished strong, because that's the real definition of a good death. A life so well lived that the end becomes a celebration, not just a farewell. So if you've made it this far, I want to thank you, not just for watching, but for being present with yourself. This wasn't just a video. It was a journey. And like all great journeys, it ends not with a goodbye, but with a breath of gratitude, a breath of peace, a breath that says, I have lived, and I am still living. Because until your very last day, you matter. Until your very last breath, your story continues. And even after that, your light remains in the hearts you've touched. So go live the rest of your life like it's the final chapter, not in fear, but in freedom, because you've earned it.